Hey YouTube. Alright, so it is Monday. Just posted a video this morning. So this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I went to the salvage yard both days. Saturday, I got a whole bunch of stuff. And then Sunday, yesterday, I had to go back. And I got the push rods and I found a couple other little things. I had to get this bracket because this was mine. I forgot. It was broke. So I ended up finding this whole bracket with this piece and the pulley. And then this is the pulley that I took off the Grand Am tensioner. And this is the actual pulley that goes on it. So now this engine is pretty much complete. Now I have my painted up bracket. I have this with all the bolts because I didn't even have the bolts for this plate. And they're different from the NA bolts. These are bigger. I've got another tensioner. I have the correct pulley. I also got this pulley because it was actually, I had this pulley on this bracket and this pulley is supposed to be way bigger, so I took this pulley off of one. I got this whole tensioner. Now I have the correct pulley. Got that bracket with this pulley and this plate with all the screws. So now I've got my alternator bracket that goes right here into the coolant elbows. I've got that painted up red. It's drying right now. So here in like 20-30 minutes, I'll get that all back together. I got my pulley right there and all the bolts and everything for it right there. So once it's all dry, I'll get some RTV on these coolant elbows, get the coolant elbows in place, get the bracket bolted on there, and that'll pretty much be the almost complete engine. So yesterday I went back out there and I got 6 push rods out of one engine and 6 more out of another engine. They were both out of NA, and since this is an NA cam and everything, I figured I'd just use the NA rockers. And so yeah, I got me some good looking push rods out of 2 different cars. I went through like 20 different Buicks and Pontiacs and Chevrolets, and I finally got, found 12 of them, 6 for each head, that were in good condition and not a whole lot of wear on them. And whenever I put them in, I know my little clip last night, the ending video, I was just a quick thing. I just had to throw it together. I didn't really get to record throwing anything in there. But push rods are in there now. Got oil on them and everything. So it should be good and lubricated, at least for now. So I went ahead and finalized, got this bracket bolted all on there. So it's on there nice and tight. Got the tensioner on there. Got my ground. I did tighten the bolt down and then loosened it so it would scuff up the paint right there, and then put the ground on there and tightened it back down. So I shouldn't have any issues right there with that ground. I've got my little sub harness on here that goes from the cam sensor to the crank sensor, and then up to the fuel rail right there, and over here to the coils. So I've got that on there. I believe that ground's also in that. But yeah, so I've got that little sub harness on there. This is literally, I just have this last alternator bracket to bolt on, get the alternator on, and then I can put the harness on and get everything plugged in, and it's pretty much ready to go. So the only thing I don't have on here is the power steering pump, and that's because I'm just going to keep the one that's in the car so I don't have to disconnect the lines. And it's just 2 bolts. It's easy. So yeah, that's the plan. So it's all together, and as soon as this bracket's done drying, I'll get it on here, get the alternator on, start getting this harness and everything on here, and by tonight, here in the next couple hours, it should be a fully complete drivetrain ready to drop in this thing. So I might even be able to get the belts on there too. So you guys stay tuned and I'll keep you updated. Okay, guys. Alright, so I've got the bracket that I painted up is on. I've got RTV on both sides of both coolant elbows, and also have RTV on both of these ports that go to the heater core. So these are all tightened down. My pulleys are all tightened down. Everything's tightened down. got the alternator on. I'm probably going to pull it back off and clean it up before I finalize it. But it's just 3 bolts, pretty easy to get to. I still have to find the bracket that goes from here and it bolts on right here into the supercharger. So I need that bar and I need the bolt that goes in right there. I just didn't get it with all the stuff from Michigan. So that's just one part I'm missing. This tensioner I also didn't get. And there was a couple other things I didn't get. But most of it I did get. And the stuff I didn't get, like this tensioner, I was lucky. I got it at the salvage yard. That piece was broke on the one I got from Michigan. And so I ended up having to get that one at the salvage. Luckily, Series 2 and Series 3 are the same on their bracket there. So I was able to find and get that. Actually, I just got that whole bracket with that. But I got what I needed to make the engine complete and to make it 100% functioning. So alternator brackets on there, everything's RTV'd, all that's ready to go. So the next step is going to be, I can't throw the belts on without the power steering pump being on, but next step's going to be getting the harness all strung out and laid over it and get everything plugged in. And then next step after that is I still got to tap this hole in this exhaust manifold and probably get a couple of plastic clips and hang some of this stuff up. But I mean, overall it's about 95% done. So, and then I'll just have to swap this bracket that goes here, the other dog bone mount bracket. I'll just have to swap the one off the other car. So whenever I do the swap. This was also another thing I found out there. It's like a brand new coolant temp sensor harness off of like a 2011 Buick Allure or something like that, the 3800. And then I've got this new coolant temp sensor. I've got to put some fresh RTV on that, but I can't finalize that and tighten that all the way down until I get my bracket on, because there's a bolt that goes down in that corner right there, and you got to put that bolt on before you thread that in. So I gotta wait to put that in until after I get the other bracket off of the car, or I could rob the one off the 07 heads that's sitting right over there. Yeah, it's on the other head. But either way, this one will be done first. So yeah, I've got to get that bracket on there and get it tight. Well, get it painted red first, then bolt it down, then get that coolant temp sensor on and RTV'd and tightened down. And then after that, it's pretty much ready to go into the 06. And like I said, I'm going to have to take the MSD coils off the 06, and those are going to go on here whenever this goes in the car. But right now, I just need to add some more oil because it's only got like 2 quarts in there. So it needs like 3 more quarts to be full and on the mark. But I mean, now with all the push rods in there, I can spin it over and everything. So once I get the other couple of flex plate torque converter bolts in, I might use the 07 starter and bolt it on there and just jump it just to hear it crank over and see how it sounds and cycle some oil through it. And I think I'm going to pick all this stuff up right now because my daughter called and she wants me to come pick her up. She wants to come help. So I'm going to get all this stuff picked up and go pick up my daughter, and then I'll be back probably in like an hour, and she's going to help me get this harness all strung on here. So you guys stay tuned, and I'll keep you updated whenever I get back. Hey YouTube. Alright, so it's Tuesday, and I've been hanging out with my princess all day. And so we come over here to my mom's, and I was needing some gas. And this thing had 3/4 of a tank. So I just cut both the straps with the Sawzall. Cut all the lines. Drug the tank out. And there's a little stopper in there. I pushed it in with the screwdriver. And it's staying open. Normally it springs back shut, but it's staying open. So it's perfect. And we're just dumping it straight in this funnel, straight in the car. And it's working out really well so far. So That's what we're doing today. Just transferring gas from the parts car to the 06. Didn't really go over to the storage and do anything today, but everything's going pretty good over there. So yeah, but if anyone needs any parts, I have this trunk lid. The doors are still pretty nice. The fenders are still pretty nice. The hood isn't bad. It's got some hail damage. You can see it. But I mean, it's not wrecked or anything. The headlights are decent. Say this door has this rust spot, so that's pretty shit, but there's no damage to the door, just the rust spot. And the back door has this little bit of damage here. Nothing major, but got good taillights, good headlights, all good glass. I'm keeping both the rear window motors and regulators, and maybe all this trim. But other than that, everything else is for sale. So if y'all need anything, there's good wheels and tires, headlights, hood, fenders, doors, glass, seats, all the trim pieces, steering column. The dash is pretty shot. I still have a 5-speed manual transmission for the 2.2 Ecotec. Got radiator fans. So still lots of good parts. So hit me up and I'll make you good deals. So it's Wednesday. Just made it over here to my storage. My car is just dumping coolant. It's coming out right here on top of the hose. I had it running and it was just flowing out. It's right there where I put that that epoxy. So yeah, I'm pretty sure this radiator is just toast. So I'm just gonna grab the one out of the 07 because I know it's good, and just let this cool off a little bit and swap it out. So I'll keep you guys updated. Alright y'all, so I took the coil packs off the 06 and the ICM and went ahead and put them on here. So I gotta bolt that down to 8mm. Yeah, I got the coil packs on there, got all the plug wires hooked up. So now the only thing I really have left to do is to put that bracket on that goes right in here, and that's what bolts the transmission to the back of the engine block. And then as soon as I get that on, then I can go ahead and throw all this harness on here, make sure everything's plugged in and all the wires for everything are good and hanging up and out of the way. And then after that, this thing's ready to go in, which is really good because the engine that's in the 06, like the engine's good, but I keep getting a coolant temperature sensor below threshold, check engine light code, and it went above half for a couple days now, and I just pulled up to my storage, and it just left the line, and then I backed up, and whenever I shut the car off, I heard it gurgle and go pshh. And so I popped the hood to start it back up, and it was just dumping coolant from right here out of this radiator hose all over the radiator, and it was just running all the way down and dripping all over the ground. Left this huge puddle under the car. So I'm letting this cool off right now, and in the meantime, I'm going to get this radiator pulled out of here, out of the 07. So I got to disconnect all these lines and everything, and then I can get this radiator out of here. I don't know, this hose seems kind of crusty, so I think I'm just going to throw this hose away. I'm not too sure about that one, but I'm just going to use the best two hoses out of both cars whenever I put this back in there, because the radiator that's in there now, this port right here was broke off, and then it was also busted over there, and I just epoxied everything and ghetto rigged it, and it's held up for a couple months. So it did okay, but I knew it wasn't a permanent fix. So I'm going to get this radiator pulled out of here, and then I'll be one step closer to fixing the 06. And then once I get the radiator swapped out, then I can get this harness and this other engine bracket on here that bolts the transmission to the engine block. And once I get all that on, get the harness on, this thing will be ready to swap in, except for tapping. I just got to tap this one exhaust flange bolt hole. And then whenever I drop the subframe and pull that engine and transmission off, then I can swap out my rack and pinion with this one I have sitting over here. I just got to put a tie rod boot on it, and that's it. And then once I get that tie rod boot on there, then that thing will be ready to bolt up to that subframe, which I'm probably just going to take one of the boots off the rack that's on there now. But that'll give me a chance to power wash and clean up the subframe with my buddy's little portable power washer, and get it all sprayed down and cleaned up as best I can. I can get that rack bolted on there, get that ready to go, get the engine and trans bolted on there, get that ready to go, and then I can get it in there, and it'll already have the good radiator in it. And so I'm still probably not going to do that this week, but I definitely need to get the radiator swapped, because I am going this weekend to Kansas to go get the 5-speed transmission for the Grand Am. So I definitely need to have this thing not leaking and not overheating and giving me issues. So I'm going to get this radiator swapped out, and then I can just deal with it for the 07 later whenever the time comes. But I'm definitely making progress. I'm very happy with the progress so far on this thing. It's looking good. So now the only thing that's left is I just got to pull that one dogbo mount bracket, get this bracket down here on, and get the harness on. But I'm going to leave that alone right now. I'm just going to worry about getting this radiator and fans out of here, and I will keep you guys updated, so stay tuned. Y'all, that was too easy. So it was literally a 10mm bolt for each one of the brackets. It's just bolt on right here and over here. And then there's a bracket that fell on my drain pan down there, but it bolts the radiator and the AC condenser together like right here, and that was a 10, so I didn't even have to take that off. And then the two little clips for the cooler lines that go into the radiator, and then the cooler lines just pop out, and that was pretty much it. And the radiator's out. It's over here. So I've already, that hose was pretty much junk, so I got it off. I'm going to keep that clamp, but now I have a clamp for each side, and this hose still feels pretty good, so I can keep that hose. And then the one that's on here still feels pretty good, so I can keep that one. Or even, I mean, this hose is still good too, so it's like either one. But yeah, this radiator is just broke. So, oh, and the fans, yeah, forgot about the fans. There was also two bolts, a 10 here and a 10 here, that bolt the fans down to the radiator, and then you have to slide, like pull the fan straight up. So like you have your one bolt right there, which this one's missing, and then one right over here, which it has it. And then once you get those out and this bolt right here out, then you just lift straight up and the fans come right off. I guess, yeah, you will have to remove your dog bones, but I mean, overall that came out really quick and easy. I mean, granted, there isn't an engine in the 07, so everything was really accessible and easy to get to. But the transmission fluid that came out actually looked really good. It was nice and red still. There's some dripping down off this plastic. But yeah, it's still nice and red trans fluid. I'll get some to come out of this fluid line. No, it's okay. Fluid looks really good, so I'm happy that the $100 junkyard transmission has held up to all that abuse for the 6 or 8 months or however long I was driving this thing. I'm just doing burnout after burnout and driving it hard. It held up really good. Trans temp normally stayed around 179, 185, and that was on the radiator cooler. Now I've got a 10A inline, like complete bypass the radiator, nice big cooler. So that should keep the trans plenty cool. So big plans for this one coming soon. But yeah, right now I just gotta, I'm still letting the 06 cool down a little bit. It's still a little hot, so I'm just gonna let that cool off for about 10 more minutes, and I'm gonna mess with trying to get one of these brackets on here and tighten up that ignition control module plug right there, just so I know it's tight. And then that's pretty much ready to go. I am going to have to rob that EGR heat shield that goes right here. But other than that, everything's going really good. So you guys stay tuned, and I'll keep you guys updated just as soon as the 06 cools down some. Alright, you guys. So I've got my bracket painted up over there. It's going to bolt into these two holes right here, and then bolt into these two holes right here. I got all my bolts for it right there. This is the bolt for the speed sensor, or the bolt that I have in there. But yeah, I'm just waiting for the paint to dry on the bracket, and then I can get that bolted on there, and then that's all good to go. And then up here, I got all three of the flex plate torque converter bolts in and tight. They're all 18 millimeters, so I've got all those in and tight. So now, next thing I can do is throw the starter on, and then start getting the harness on, and getting everything plugged in. So I have to unplug this knock sensor and this AC compressor plug I just threw on there. But overall, it's definitely coming together. So it's very, very close. I'm going to have to tap that bolt in the rear flange and throw some more oil in it. And that's pretty much about it. I am going to have to get another map sensor, because this is an NA one that I put on here. And that's what my issue was before, whenever I did the top sop. The first time was I got the tune from Daniel Smuts on the actual supercharged computer, and it would run great when it was idling, but as soon as I put it in drive, it kept wanting to die, and it ended up being the map sensor. As soon as I swapped out that bracket with the map sensor and everything, it ran perfect. So now I've got the one on the Grand Am that's a good map sensor, and the one for the Grand Prix for the 07 that's a good map sensor. So that's the NA win. So I'm gonna have to get another supercharged win. So I've got to find another Series 3 supercharged Grand Prix so I can steal this whole bracket. But other than that bracket right there, and this little heat shield that goes right here, and the bar that goes from here to here on the supercharger, that's like all I'm really lacking right now. And some oil. It's got like 2 quarts in there. So it's getting very close. I'm still letting the car cool down. It was still had some pressure in there. I did finally get the cap off, but the hoses were still a little warm, so I'm just letting it cool off completely before I start digging into it. I mean, other than that, everything's going really well, so I've just got to let this paint dry all the way. I got 2 coats on there, and once that's dry, I can bolt that on, and after I get that bolted on, I'm probably going to move on to the 06 and start tearing that radiator out. So y'all stay tuned, and I'll keep you guys updated. Alright, you guys, I've got the old radiator out. As you can see, it's cracked right here. Move it into the light. Yeah, it's got a big crack in it right here. This is where I epoxied it. And it was cracked all along the top and straight down this front side right here. And I epoxied all of that before, and it held up for a while, but it's like that epoxy got wet again right here and blew it out. So, and there's the busted off piece. But this one is good. So it's pretty much ready to go back in now. And so that's going to be that. So I'm going to probably pull that hose off, go to stick it on this one with the clamp. That way it's already on there. Then I can just set this one right back down in there, same way I just pulled this one out. So I'm going to work on getting this back in here. And yeah, so another thing is when you're pulling this out, so this spot here and this spot down here on both sides slide in right here on the back side of the radiator. So to leave that in there without disconnecting the AC, you gotta pull up on the radiator and then pull up or push down on the radiator and pull up on the condenser while it's still in there. And it's kind of a pain in the ass, but I managed to get it after about 10 minutes of fighting it. So at least now that's good to go. I can get this other radiator back in here, start getting everything hooked back up, and I should be good. Another thing I did was, this was the original radiator hose from over here, and I wanted to save my coolant at least as much as I could. So when the radiator was still in and this hose was still hooked up to the radiator, I had the radiator exposed right here with the hose off, had the hose on over here, and I put me a coolant jug down in here with that funnel. There's a coolant jug, but I just set the coolant jug right here, put the funnel on top, and then blew into the end of the hose that was attached to right here, like up here, blew into it, and watched all the coolant come out and go into the funnel and then into the bottle. And once the bottle got full, I just pulled the funnel, put the lid on, pulled it out, and disconnected the hose, and the rest of the coolant went on the ground. But at least that way I've got me a whole full jug of coolant to go back in here, and I've got a little bit of water. So, but yeah, not too bad for, you know, just trying to save, since I'm kind of low on cash at the moment. Don't get paid till tomorrow, and almost my whole check's going on that transmission, the 5-speed for the Grand Am. So, but yeah, that's little tips and tricks how to save your coolant. So yeah, I'm gonna get this other radiator put back in here and start getting everything hooked back up, and I'll keep you guys updated as I go. Alright y'all, so I've got the radiator out of the 07 back in here. I went ahead and connected my clamp right there and the clamp right there. They're nice and tight, so it ain't going nowhere. So what I had to do is I had to lean the radiator forward like this, and then pick up the condenser behind it and slide it back onto those hooks. And then your little rubber grommet feet sit down. There's 2 holes in the bottom of the radiator support right there. Those grommets sit down in there, and that's what holds it. Normally you would plug in your cooler lines, but on this car I bypassed them, and I just ran an external cooler up here into the front bumper. Yeah, there she is. So there's my little cooler. I mean, it does pretty good most of the time, but I don't know, I think I just trashed the trans. So but yeah, so now all that's left now is I just gotta throw these fans back in here, get those bolted back down with those 2 10mm or 3 10mm bolts, and then once I get all the bolts in and tight, then it's just hooking the little bit of hoses back up and filling her back up with coolant and letting it bleed. So that's where I'm at right now, and I will keep you guys updated, so stay tuned. Alright you guys, so I've got the radiators in, everything's connected. The car's been running for like 30 minutes. I pretty much got it bled. There might still be a few little bubbles in there, but it's maintaining operating temp. It's not overheating. It hasn't died. Transmission temp's 132, which is actually really good for it just sitting here idling and not actually driving, because normally it just gets really hot real quick. But the car's doing really well, so I guess we will see how it goes. But everything seems to be working really good. I got some nice hot heat coming out of all my vents. But that's it. So I'm probably going to go to the car wash after this cools down and just spray down the engine bay, get all this antifreeze that went flying everywhere out of here. You see it from the bleeder valve. I've got all this antifreeze up in here on the lower intake manifold, which isn't a big deal. It ain't going to be in here for long anyways, maybe another week. So, but this will at least get me by for now. And yeah, I'm stoked on that. So this is what I got going on. So it's pretty much done. So now next thing I got to do with this, probably be tomorrow, is so I've got my bracket bolted on that I got painted. So now that's my stabilizer between the transmission and the block. So now that's on there. So the next thing to do is just the harness, and that's pretty much it. And so on the exhaust, instead of tapping this, I think whenever I pull this engine and trans out, I'll just take the exhaust manifolds off that engine and put them on this one, because I know 100% for a fact that these are good. I don't have to, there's no bolts broke off in them or nothing, or cut off in them. So, and these also have the heat shields on them, as that one doesn't have the heat shield on it, on that front one. So, I guess whenever I end up pulling this engine and trans out of here, then I'll just take these exhaust manifolds for that engine, and that way it's got the heat shields, and I'll just be able to just bolt it straight up and not have any issues. So that's the plan with this. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all my stuff picked up and put back in here, and I will catch you guys tomorrow. So like, comment, subscribe, stay tuned for more content. Let me know what you think, and you guys have a good night. So thanks for watching. Hey YouTube. Alright, it's Thursday. I'm over here at my storage with the 07. So today I'm working on the harness. I pulled the harness out and it was missing a couple of plugs, so I'm just going through my other extra harnesses, trying to find the plugs I need and wire them on and get them all taped up, so that way this harness is ready to go and get put on the engine and trans. So that's what I'm working on right now. Then once I get the harness, all the plugs wired on and taped up, and I get the harness on, and I'm going to throw a towel over the top of the supercharger and hook it up to the cherry picker with the chain and lift it up. I'm going to put the starter in and get the starter hooked up and get the dust shield on, and then pretty much the only thing I'm really going to have to do is take off the exhaust manifolds, so that way whenever I get the engine and trans out of the 06, the NA engine and stuff, then I can pull the bracket I need and a couple other little things that I need off of that car, the exhaust. And because on the car now, I know the exhaust just bolts right up. I don't have any issues with it. So if I just take the manifolds off of that engine that's in there, which they got to come off anyways, because I've got to tear the whole thing apart to do the top swap. So figured might as well. I can use that stuff, put it on here, and then I know that the exhaust will bolt right up and I won't have any issues with the exhaust. So now the only other thing I have to do is just get another map sensor, because that's for the NA, not for the supercharged. So I got to get another supercharged map sensor and get some fluids in it, and it's ready to go. So I'm going to keep working on this harness, and I'll keep you guys updated, so stay tuned. Alright you guys, so I've got my harness. I had like 4 things that I had to wire on. So my O2 sensor plug was just kind of torn up and everything, and it was just wires. It didn't have any sheathing. So I taped it all up, all the way down back, like started up here, taped it all the way down here, and then kept going all the way back up. So it's got 2 layers. And then I took this sheathing off of another harness and just taped it around there in some places, just so it's got some sheathing on it. This is the rear knock sensor. That's all plugged in. It goes right down there. It goes right back there behind that little heat shield. So that's all plugged in. I am going to be taking the alternator that's on the 06 right now and putting it on here, but for now this one's on here. I had to wire on this plug because I guess I had cut this plug off for maybe the blue Grand Prix. I don't know. But yeah, so I had to wire this alternator plug on, and then I had to wire on the plug right there on the oil pan plug. That's actually the plug for, it's actually this plug over here that goes to the steering rack, but it's the exact same plug as the one on the oil pan, and it's also the exact same plug as this one for the purge solenoid. And yeah, I'm missing the purge solenoid over here. I'm gonna have to take that off the 06 when I pull the engine And I'm also missing the heat shield that goes right here. So I'm going to have to pull that off the 06 engine, which is just a couple bolts. So that won't be nothing. But other than that, I've got everything on here. I mean, everything's all ready to go. All the spark plug wires are on. Everything's connected. And this is for the passenger wheel bearing. This is for the driver's side wheel bearing for the speed sensors. Got the computer here. It's just going to bolt up here where the factory fuse box normally goes. It's for the AC line. It's for the ABS, which the black car don't have ABS. Some mass airflow, and that's a body harness. Plugs in up by the firewall. So full harness is on and ready to go. So the only thing that's not hooked up right now is the starter. So once I get the starter bolted in and everything, I got all my wires right here to hook all that up. Maybe that one goes right there. So yeah, everything's ready to go, minus just the heat shield and the map sensor and the starter. That's pretty much it. It's ready to go in. So this engine is complete. So now I just gotta get some more oil and get some fresh oil in there. Fill up the trans fluid after I get it into the car. I'm not gonna do it yet because I don't want it leaking out the holes for the lines. So on the 07, it has these brand spanking new lines. I paid like 70 or 80 bucks for both. From I had to go to like 3 different part stores to get them. But I got both lines. And on the 07, I'm converting to 10AN fittings and running the external transcooler. And I already have the adapters and everything. They thread right in down there. So I'm going to be deleting, not using these factory lines. So I'm probably going to take these factory lines off the 07 to run with this setup in the 06. That way it has brand new lines. And I can just run them through the radiator. And I know it sounds stupid because I have an external cooler on the car right now. But with the radiator that I just took out of the 07 and put in there, I was running these factory lines. And this trans stayed at 179 to 185. Even doing pulls, it never got over 200 ever. And so I mean, this is a with these lines, it can keep the trans cool. And this one, I'm pretty much just doing factory setup minus the 3/6 pulley, so it's just barely even down a pulley, but everything else is still factory. So I don't see an issue with running this like it is. So I'm going to end up pulling these lines off, and those are going to go with this in the 06 whenever I do the swap. Another thing I got on eBay this morning, I paid for the 5-speed trans for the Grand Am swap. So I'm going this weekend to pick that up. And yeah, then I'm going to have me the 5-speed. So now I've just got to get the flywheel machined for the Grand Am. And then I'll be able to bolt the flywheel on, get the clutch kit all bolted on, get the trans bolted up to it after I wash it and change the slave. But I mean, it's really coming together. It's almost done. So I'm hoping by New Year's, I'm hoping to have the Grand Am running and driving. So that's where I'm at right now. So that's probably going to be it for this video, you guys. There's not a whole lot much more I can do over here today. But yeah, it's been a very progressive day. So made a lot of progress. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more if you like what you see. And I'll catch you guys next time. So y'all have a good night. Thanks for watching.